I am here today not because I want to be. I am terrified. I am here because I believe it is my civic duty to tell you what happened to me while Brett Kavanaugh and I were in high school.
I'm not questioning that Dr. Ford may have been sexually assaulted by some person in some place at some time. But I have never done this to her or to anyone. That's not who I am. It is not who I was. I am innocent of this charge.
Emotional testimony on Capitol Hill today. Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh and his accuser share their stories, the memories that could change the course of the Supreme Court nomination. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. A full day of testimony at the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing today with Supreme Court nominee Judge Brett Kavanaugh and the woman who accuses him of sexual assault, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, went first and answered questions about an incident she says she first detailed in a letter to California Senator Dianne Feinstein. Ford alleges Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her at a party when they were both in high school. She testified today he held her down on a bed.
I believed he was going to rape me. I tried to yell for help. When I did, Brett put his hand over my mouth to stop me from yelling. This is what terrified me the most and has had the most lasting impact on my life. It was hard for me to breathe, and I thought that Brett was accidentally going to kill me. Both Brett and Mark were drunkenly laughing during the attack.
Ford says she appeared today before the Senate Judiciary Committee not because she wanted to, but because she believes it's her civic duty. Brett Kavanaugh pushed back, saying he didn't sexually assault Ford then, nor has he sexually assaulted anyone ever. He testified that the allegations are a political attack.
This whole 2-week effort has been a calculated and orchestrated political hit, fueled with apparent pent-up anger about President Trump and the 2016 election, fear that has been unfairly stoked about my judicial record, revenge on behalf of the Clintons, and millions of dollars in money from outside left-wing opposition groups. This is a circus. The consequences will extend long past my nomination. The consequences will be with us for decades.
Democrats and Republicans on the committee got a few political jabs in as they questioned Ford and Kavanaugh. Here's California Democratic Senator Kamala Harris, followed by Republican Lindsey Graham, representing South Carolina.
The notes from your therapy sessions were created long before this nomination and corroborate what you have said today. You have passed a polygraph and submitted the results to this committee. Judge Kavanaugh has not. You have called for outside witnesses to testify and for expert witnesses to testify. Judge Kavanaugh has not. But most importantly, you have called for an independent FBI investigation into the facts. Judge Kavanaugh has not. And we owe you that. We owe the American people that.
If you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. What you want to do is destroy this guy's life, hold this seat open, and hope you win in 2020. You've said that, not me. You've got nothing to apologize for. When you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them that Lindsey said hello, because I voted for them. I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. And if you really wanted to know the truth, you sure as hell wouldn't have done what you've done to this guy.
Earlier today, I spoke with San Diego attorney and legal analyst Dan Eaton about the testimonies of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford and Judge Brett Kavanaugh to get his take on how they did respectively.
Dr. Ford came across very firmly as someone who clearly believes she remembers a significant traumatic incident of sexual assault. Judge Kavanaugh, on the other hand, was very fiery in denying it ever occurred. He doesn't deny that Dr. Blasey Ford was sexually assaulted. He's just very clear that it wasn't Judge Kavanaugh who did it. And ultimately, it's the senators who are going to have to evaluate this, not in a legal sense, but in a political sense, in determining whether Judge Kavanaugh deserves to become Justice Kavanaugh.
Okay, so for this hearing, there is a special counsel that has been brought in. How effective do you think Rachel Mitchell has been serving as an outside counsel for the Republican-led committee?
I think Ms. Miller is an effective questioner. The problem was with the format. It was very disjointed. The idea of having her question for 5 minutes and then going over to the Democrats to talk in a very different way to Dr. Blasey Ford didn't really work, because the prosecutor couldn't develop a narrative and couldn't follow up in a seamless kind of way that you want to do when you have a witness on the stand. And ultimately, frankly, some of the areas of inquiry didn't quite work. She didn't gain traction because she tried to say, for example, that it was a political hit job that she was being paid, that Dr. Blasey Ford was being paid to make some of these allegations, or was being funded. None of that came out. Ultimately, the inconsistencies that Ms. Miller showed ended up being fairly minor. But again, ultimately, it's going to be for the senators to determine how effective the information she was able to elicit was in determining whether Judge Kavanaugh deserves to be Justice Kavanaugh.
So this is not the first time a Supreme Court nominee has been accused of sexual misconduct. Can you talk to me about today's hearing and how it might differ from the 1991 testimony of Anita Hill? And 27 years later, what are the similarities?
Well, a couple of things. We're in a different moment right now. We're in the Me Too moment. When Anita Hill testified, sexual harassment had only recently been recognized as illegal under federal civil rights law. But the other fundamental thing is that Anita Hill was claiming sexual issues, as it were, in the workplace. This involved sexual misconduct when the nominee was a teenager. And so those two things are quite different. You're also talking about conduct, if Dr. Blasey Ford is to be believed, that is a crime. Justice Thomas was never accused of criminal misconduct. Some of the things that Anita Hill said that he had said were troubling, but they did not rise to the level of sexual assault, and that makes a difference. Clearly, the testimony, if Dr. Blasey Ford is to be believed, with respect to Judge Kavanaugh, is going to be more troubling in the broader scheme of things, even though it happened almost 4 decades ago, than the kinds of comments that Anita Hill attributed to now Justice Clarence Thomas.
So that brings me to what could potentially be the impact of Dr. Ford's testimony on this confirmation process?
The impact of Dr. Blasey Ford's testimony is going to depend on the context in which it is placed by Judge Kavanaugh's testimony. Understand, ultimately, when you are evaluating credibility, you are evaluating the credibility of two competing stories. So whether Dr. Blasey Ford's testimony has any kind of durable impact on either the vote or on history will depend ultimately on whether Judge Kavanaugh's denials are believed by the senators who ultimately were going to have to make the decision as to whether he deserves this promotion to the Supreme Court of the United States.
San Diego attorney and legal analyst Dan Eaton, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ebony.
Our coverage on the Senate hearing for Judge Brett Kavanaugh and Dr. Christine Blasey Ford continues online and on air. NPR's Morning Edition will have more analysis tomorrow on KPBS Radio. President Trump has promised to stop family separations at the border this summer after public outcry, but KPBS has confirmed the U.S. is still separating some families. KPBS investigative reporter Jean Guerrero has this story.
San Diego County data shows that since July, at least 54 U.S. citizen children have been brought into child welfare services as, quote, asylum referrals. This applies mostly to kids separated from asylum-seeking parents at the border, according to the county. President Trump had said he was stopping family separations in June, saying the new policy was to, quote, maintain family unity. He said families would be detained together whenever possible. A federal judge in San Diego also ordered a stop to family separations, but the language in his ruling only covers foreign nationals with foreign national children. Among the children who've been separated recently is a 7-year-old boy who came to the San Ysidro port of entry with his Mexican mother last Thursday. They were asking for asylum because the mother says they were fleeing domestic violence. I asked Customs and Border Protection why the agency separated this family. The agency says it's still separating families when it involves U.S. citizen children because U.S. citizens can't be detained in CBP custody. Attorney Erica Pinedo of Al Otro Lado says the mother should have been instead released on parole with her son, with a notice to appear in court.
They've essentially stripped her of her parental rights without any due process, where she's followed all of the rules, she's sought asylum legally, and should be with her son right now.
The boy is now in child welfare services in San Diego. Al Otro Lado is asking California's Attorney General to intervene on behalf of all children who are still being separated. The State Attorney General's office declined to comment. The Department of Homeland Security said it is still separating families, but only when it's in the best interest of the child. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Hundreds of other families who were separated under the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy also remain separated. But a federal judge here in San Diego has mandated reunifications, and he'll be updated on that process in a hearing tomorrow. The arrival of fall, unfortunately, means the arrival of flu season. KPBS health reporter Susan Murphy talked to an infectious disease doctor about last year's deadly season and what's expected in the coming months.
Last winter and spring, the flu virus took a heavy toll in San Diego County. It was the deadliest we'd seen in 2 decades. People experiencing fevers, coughs, congestion, and fatigue overwhelmed hospital emergency rooms and clinics.
We had nearly 350 deaths and tens of thousands of cases reported.
Most of the people who died were over the age of 65, but 2 were children. Dr. Schooley is chief of the Division of Infectious Diseases at UC San Diego's School of Medicine. He says this flu season could be milder if it mimics the Southern Hemisphere's season like it often does.
But having a good year in the South, i.e. not that many cases, doesn't mean that it's going to be quiet in the North. We have to keep our eyes open because once a new influenza strain breaks out, it breaks out wherever it happens to come from and will then bounce from hemisphere to hemisphere over the course of the next couple of years.
He says so far the same influenza strain is making the rounds.
Based on last year, it'll probably be H3N2 again. H3N2 last year was different enough from the vaccine strain that the vaccine strain was only about 50% effective.
Even at 50% effective, he says it likely saved hundreds of lives around the county. He says this year's vaccine is expected to be a better match. He's urging everyone 6 months and older to get vaccinated.
Influenza vaccination decreases significantly the number of people who really get sick with influenza. And it also decreases the length of time people shed virus and spread it to other people. So it's really an investment in decreasing deaths and also in decreasing the ability of the virus to saturate the population.
The influenza vaccine is available at doctors' offices and retail pharmacies. People without medical insurance can go to a community clinic or county public health center. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
It's been 1 year since the San Diego City Council voted to permit businesses in the marijuana supply chain. That includes growing the plant, extracting its oils, and infusing them in foods and drinks. And KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says this industry has a lot of room for growth.
So this is where Therapy Tonics holds all their tinctures and drinks.
George Sadler is showing me a fridge full of cannabis-infused coffee drinks. They come in flavors like vanilla caramel and Mexican mocha. The bottles are 4.20 ounces.
Intentional, I assume.
These drinks are made at Vista Prime. It's a cannabis manufacturing and distribution company based in Kearny Mesa. Sadler's the CEO.
These are finished cartridges?
They produce their own cannabis products like drinks, candies, and vape cartridges. They also package and distribute the good old-fashioned plant. Bags of dried cannabis flower line their storage shelves.
It comes from all over California. I mean, some of it comes from North and Humboldt, and a lot of stuff now is coming from out in the desert.
Vista Prime is part of a budding industry in San Diego, the cannabis supply chain. Since the city council voted to allow these businesses 1 year ago, it's granted permits to 11 marijuana production facilities. 3 testing labs have also gotten licensed. Sadler says for the most part, his hopes are coming true.
The industry is flourishing. It's being dealt with a bunch of really good business people. The support, you're always going to have negative. Doesn't matter what you do with marijuana, you're going to have negative. But I think everything that we're hoping for is coming true. It's just because it's a very hard road to get to this point.
Right now, Vista Prime has only temporary permission from the city to keep operating. It's currently going through a longer and more rigorous vetting process. Sadler's waiting for a permit hearing in November.
I've owned a few businesses, and this has been the most difficult process I've ever been through, bar none. Honestly, if I look back at what it's taken to get here, I don't know that I could do it again.
One of the most important factors in business in general is paying attention to opportunity and then acting on it.
Marcia Sarno owns a wholesale bakery in Mira Mesa. Right now, she does contract baking and makes muffins and pastries served in local hotel breakfasts. But earlier this month, she was granted a permit that will let her make cannabis edibles. The application was tough.
The process is responding to questions, filling out forms, having the city review them, come up with questions, have to respond to the questions, and that went back and forth like 5 times. You're talking about months of this going on and holidays in between, and then it was a big process. It was a big process, expensive.
Between fees and consultants, Sarno estimates her permit cost her about $100,000. And that's on the low end. She owns her building. Many applicants have to sign leases and pay above market rent on empty space while they wait for a permit that they may not ever get.
One of the things that I'm particularly excited about is the job creation here in San Diego.
Kimberly Sims is an attorney who represents Sarno and other cannabis entrepreneurs. She says it's fitting for San Diego to have its own cannabis supply chain.
And that doesn't mean that we're not going to have products coming from Northern California or the desert cities, but I think it's really wonderful that we can continue to build our cannabis industry right here, and again, upon the values that San Diego holds so dear, job creation and sustaining our local small businesses.
Your secret sauce, what form is it in? Is it in an oil? Is it an extract? Is it a butter? And it works in different products differently.
As Sarno shows me around her bakery, she admits she's brand new to the cannabis industry. She may hire an edibles expert to get started. She's also looking for a new space to relocate her existing bakery business. It's daunting, but she's ready.
I'm just happy, right? Really happy. I was just relieved and grateful and looking forward to the opportunities. As I told you, I'm not really sure what we're going to be doing over the next few months and how we're going to be transitioning, but I think that the opportunity is pretty extraordinary. I'm just really excited about it.
Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
San Diego's ordinance allows a max of 40 permits for marijuana production facilities. Officials are set to hold hearings on 4 more of these businesses next week. High Caliber Horse Rescue has a new challenge. For months, the organization has faced questions over its treatment of animals and spending of donor money. Now the group has been told it has to move. iNews Source reporter Nicole Tuiao has details.
High Caliber has rented a 16-acre Valley Center ranch since 2014. Now the property's owner has told the group it needs to move out, according to the rescue's founder, Michelle Natilla. She's blaming critics for not being able to find a new place to rent.
Our critics who worked hard to shut us down have called and reached out to every property manager and realtor company that they could get their hands on and sent photos of us and said, don't rent to these people.
Natilla made those comments during a Facebook Live on Tuesday where she took a tour of the ranch. She showed stables that had been dismantled, supplies that had been packed up, and the horses that remain on the property.
It's a wake-up call when you walk through a ranch that used to have over 100 of your dreams sitting here happily munching hay, and now there's about 30.
Neither Natilla nor her attorney responded to iNewsSource's request for comment. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Nicole Tiao.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit media partner of KPBS. The University of California is looking to boost faculty diversity. Officials say they will be setting aside more than $7 million a year on programs and incentives. Earlier this year, the 10-campus system came under fire for having mostly white teaching staffs for student bodies that are mostly not. New numbers show 2/3 of California college students are people of color.
We think it's a morally right thing to do to have our faculty reflect California's diversity, but really this can be a big help in addressing student achievement and maybe inspiring students to go on and get their PhD to become faculty members. The more people that you see in the classroom that look like you, I think would be a win for California.
For the past 3 years, the state legislature has allocated $2 million to help the UC system increase faculty diversity. Lawmakers say they will be holding hearings next legislative session to further address the issue.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the nation tunes in. And now the Senate must decide after Christine Blasey Ford and Brett Kavanaugh testify before the Senate. After 7 on Evening Edition, KPBS.
Slightly warmer temperatures today as we keep an eye on Hurricane Rosa and its potential impact. Justin Pavic has the forecast.
Thanks, Wes. We look ahead and we go through the next couple of days. Still talking about the warmth out there. Going to be looking at, again, temperatures that will be just slightly above normal. And we're also going to be talking about some dry conditions, but turning wet. Some changes coming up as we continue to follow Hurricane Rosa very closely as it makes that, again, turn off toward the north and eventually the northeast with the potential for showers, even for some zones here east. Talking about some soaking rain potential, especially over the mountainous terrain. Satellite radar currently quiet from La Jolla to Oceanside to Chula Vista, points east toward Borrego Springs and Mount Laguna. See a big spin going on off the coast. This will increase the onshore flow as we go throughout the next couple of days with subtle cooling toward the immediate shoreline. For tonight, talking about the numbers dropping down into the 60s around San Diego, Oceanside 62, Chula Vista 64, dropping into the mid-70s around Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna down to 57. And again, check it out here in the metro, 67 clouds on the increase again as we go throughout the overnight. Again, we're going to be talking about some clouds breaking for sunshine as we venture into tomorrow. The numbers warming back again into the mid and the upper 70s around Oceanside and San Diego. Notice here points east toward Borrego Springs back to 105. But as we go through the weekend, moisture will be lifting north. Again, from the Baja, working its way into southeastern California and extreme southwestern Arizona, especially as we venture into Sunday night and into Monday. So we do have to watch out for Hurricane Rosa. Notice an intensifying hurricane, very symmetric. We're starting to see the eye appear, and this will make that turn and bend off toward the north as we go through time. Even though it will be weakening with regards to winds, it's going to still produce some heavy rain over the desert southwest. So again, that concern this weekend is that moisture lifts off toward the north, and that heavy rain threat from the mountains points to the east. We are going to be talking about some showers here locally as well toward the coast. By Tuesday, temperatures dropping off into the 70s. Inland areas, perhaps even some steadier showers by Tuesday. But like I said, the heaviest will be definitely over the mountains and even in toward some of the deserts. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic. Back to you, Ebony.
For some people, the path to a career isn't a straight one. And today, San Diego Continuing Education is stepping in to help.
Many folks who in my community don't take advantage of it, and mainly because they don't know about it. They don't hear about it. They don't know that these opportunities are available. And the only thing they hear is you're either going to go to work or you're going to go to college, but nothing in between. And this is a way in which you really can get a skill, make good money, get a career, and basically expand your life in any direction you choose to go.
San Diego Continuing Education hosted a career fair. More than 2,500 students met with recruiters and different fields. The goal is to help attendees figure out what the future might hold and what they want to pursue.
I just need more help in it because I have ADHD, so it's kind of hard for me to contain the information. But with a disability, it's like getting help from the Gateway program is a lot of help because they help me a lot, and it's just a great program to get yourself into.
San Diego Continuing Education has been around for 100 years and provides all of its classes free of cost. Beyonce and Jay-Z fans will have a little extra help getting into formation for tonight's concert. The Metropolitan Transit System is doubling its Green Line trolley service ahead of the concert. Trains between Old Town and SDCCU Stadium will depart every 7.5 minutes tonight from 5 to 8. And trains between El Cajon and the stadium will also depart every 7.5 minutes tonight from 6 to 7. Event organizers expect 40,000 plus attendees. Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, U.S. securities regulators go after Elon Musk over a tweet, the possible penalties for the head of Tesla. And on Midday Edition, 80 musical artists across 60 stages will have a preview of the Adams Avenue Street Fair tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.